My wife handed me another man's combat boots and told me to clean them before the division commander arrived. 10 minutes later, Major General Nathaniel Brooks walked through the door, saw the polishing brush in my hand, stopped dead, and saluted me. My wife froze. So did Major Derek Cole. The boots nearly slipped out of my hands. People later told the story as if that salute changed everything. It didn't. The salute only made everyone in the room realize that the quiet husband Allison Mercer had been treating like hired help was the same man whose photograph hung in the division headquarters. My name is Evan Mercer. I was 38 years old, medically retired from the United States Army, and I had spent the last 4 years trying very hard not to be famous. My wife, Major Allison Mercer, had spent those same 4 years becoming increasingly embarrassed by that choice. We met when we were both young captains. She was logistics. I was infantry. Allison liked plans, promotion timelines, polished shoes, and rooms where everyone understood exactly who mattered. I liked soldiers, bad coffee, broken trucks, and getting home alive. We worked because we were different. At least, that was what I used to tell myself. Then Afghanistan happened. I left active service with damage to my left leg, nerve problems in 2 fingers, a long scar under my ribs, and the Medal of Honor. That last part was the one Allison never understood. Not the medal itself. What it did to me. The ceremony was televised. My face appeared in newspapers. Schools invited me to speak. Politicians wanted photographs. Veterans groups asked me to sit on boards. Defense companies offered advisory positions that paid more in 1 year than I had earned in 5. I turned almost all of it down. I accepted a small role with a veterans transition nonprofit in Colorado Springs. 3 days a week. Mostly helping wounded soldiers navigate employment and disability paperwork. No cameras. No biography on the office wall. No medal displayed. Most people knew me as Evan. That was exactly how I wanted it. Allison called it hiding. You could be doing something significant, she told me once. I am. You help people fill out forms. I help soldiers figure out what happens after the army stops calling them soldiers. You know what I mean. Yes. She meant important people did important-looking things. By the time she made major, the gap between us had widened. Her social circle became battalion commanders, executive officers, aides, planners, and staff officers chasing lieutenant colonel. I remained the husband who arrived at functions in a plain suit and left before speeches if I could. Then Derek Cole transferred into her brigade. Major Derek Cole. Tall. West Point. Ranger tab. Perfect hair. The kind of officer who somehow looked freshly pressed even after 12 hours in the field. He worked in the brigade operations shop and quickly became Allison's favorite person to mention at dinner. Derek says division is restructuring. Derek got selected for the planning conference. Derek knows General Brooks's aide. Derek thinks I should apply for the fellowship. At first, I barely noticed. Then she started comparing us. Not directly. That would have been easier. Instead, Derek still trains every morning. You used to care about staying sharp. Derek thinks veterans who leave the service too early sometimes lose direction. Derek says visibility matters if you want to influence policy. Eventually I asked, does Derek know I exist? Allison rolled her eyes. Don't be insecure. I'm not. Then stop making him an issue. I'm not the one bringing him into dinner every night. That argument ended with her sleeping in the guest room. Things got worse from there. The event was a division heritage reception at Fort Sentinel, Colorado. Not a ball. Not a parade. A formal afternoon event honoring current soldiers and local veterans before the division's annual organizational day. Allison's brigade had been assigned a reception room. She asked me to help. Not attend. Help. There are a lot of civilian guests, she said. We're short on people. What do you need? Just set up. That should have been my first clue. Still, I agreed. Because she was my wife. Because I had spent 12 years in the army and knew how these events worked. And because part of me still believed helping her would remind us how to be a team. I arrived at 1300. Tables needed moving. Flags needed straightening. Name cards were wrong. 2 framed photographs were hanging crooked. The coffee station had been placed directly under an air vent. Normal event chaos. I fixed what I could. Nobody recognized me. That was not unusual. My Medal of Honor ceremony had been years earlier. I had lost weight. My hair was shorter. And most soldiers had better things to do than memorize photographs of recipients. I preferred it that way. At 14:30, Derek walked in wearing his service uniform. He looked around. Allison said you'd handle the room. I'm helping. He handed me a box. Can you put these challenge coins at the head table? Sure. Then another task. Then another. By 1500, I realized something. Derek thought I was basically Allison's civilian assistant. Not husband helping wife. Staff. I let it go. Then he returned from outside carrying mud on one boot. Damn. He looked down. General Brooks will be here in 20. Allison walked over. What happened? Parking area. Derek lifted his trouser leg slightly. Brown mud streaked across the black leather. Allison looked at me. Evan, can you fix those? I thought I misheard. What? His boots. Derek laughed awkwardly. It's fine. I can find something. Allison pointed toward a supply cabinet. There's polish in the admin kit. I stared at her. You want me to clean his boots? She lowered her voice. Please don't make this difficult. Derek raised both hands. Seriously, Allison, I can do it. But he did not take off the boot. He waited. That mattered. I looked at my wife. Around us, 3 captains and a sergeant first class had gone very quiet. I came to help set up the reception. And this is helping. Then he can clean his own boots. Her jaw tightened. Evan. That tone. The command voice. She had started using it at home too. General Brooks will be here any minute. Then Derek should hurry. One captain looked down to hide a smile. Allison noticed. Her face changed. Now it was no longer about the boot. It was about whether I would challenge her in front of people. Exactly the kind of thing our marriage had become. She stepped closer. Would it kill you to do something for someone besides yourself? That sentence hit harder than it should have. Maybe because she knew exactly how much of my adult life had been spent doing things for other people. Maybe because she had started acting like the man I was before Afghanistan no longer counted. I looked at Derek. He finally looked uncomfortable. I can handle it. Allison snapped. No. We don't have time. Then she opened the cabinet, found the small shoe care kit, and pushed it into my chest. Please. Just once, don't turn everything into some wounded veteran pride issue. Silence. Absolute silence. Derek looked at her. Even he knew she had crossed something. I could have walked out. Probably should have. Instead I took the kit. Not because she won. Because suddenly I wanted to know how far she would go if I stopped resisting. I pulled a chair from the wall. Derek hesitated. Evan, man, you really don't. Take it off. He looked at Allison. She nodded. That irritated me more than the request itself. He removed the muddy boot. I sat near the side table and cleaned it. A Medal of Honor recipient polishing another officer's boot was not inherently degrading. I had cleaned toilets as a private. Dug fighting positions as a staff sergeant. Carried wounded men. Washed blood off equipment. No honest work was beneath me. The humiliation came from why my wife had asked. She wanted me to know where I stood. Derek mattered to her professional world. I did not. At 15:14, I finished wiping away the mud. At 15:16, the brigade commander entered. Colonel Marianne Holt. She glanced at me. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Recognition almost happened. Then someone called her away. Allison checked the room. Head table good? Yes. Programs? Done. Coffee? Done. Derek put his boot back on. Looks perfect. I handed him the brush. You're welcome. Allison whispered. Was that so hard? I looked at her. No. Something about my answer made her uncomfortable. At 15:21, the division command group arrived. The room snapped into attention. Major General Nathaniel Brooks entered with Command Sergeant Major Lewis Grant and 2 aides. I knew Brooks. Not well. He had been a colonel when my platoon got trapped outside Ghazni. He had been part of the command team that later reviewed the action. Years later, he attended my Medal of Honor ceremony. We had exchanged Christmas cards twice. He saw Colonel Holt first. They shook hands. Then he turned. His eyes passed over Allison. Derek. The staff. Then landed on me. He stopped. The room changed. Brooks stared at the polishing cloth in my left hand. Then at the boot brush sitting beside me. Then back at my face. Sergeant First Class Mercer. Nobody moved. I stood. Sir. Allison's head snapped toward me. Brooks took 2 steps forward. Then the 2-star general raised his hand and saluted. Not casually. Not jokingly. A sharp, formal salute. Every officer in the room went still. I returned it. Good to see you, sir. Brooks lowered his hand. I should be saying that to you. Then Command Sergeant Major Grant recognized me. His expression changed completely. Jesus Christ. Brooks smiled. Ladies and gentlemen, if some of you haven't met him, this is retired Sergeant First Class Evan Mercer. Allison looked like someone had removed the floor beneath her. Derek's face went pale. Brooks continued. Medal of Honor recipient. Silence. Silver Star before that. More silence. And, unless I'm mistaken, the man whose actions outside Ghazni kept 31 soldiers alive when his platoon position was overrun. I hated introductions like that. Always had. Sir, that's generous. No. His eyes shifted to the brush. Then the polished boot Derek was wearing. The general's face changed. What were you doing when we came in? Nobody answered. I could have protected Allison. For 9 years, that had been instinct. Smooth the moment. Keep private humiliation private. Make sure her career never paid for our marriage. I looked at her. She could not meet my eyes. Then Derek spoke. Sir, there was mud on my boot. Brooks looked at him. I can see that, Major. Derek swallowed. Mr. Mercer helped me clean it. Brooks looked back at me. Helped? Before I could answer, Allison stepped forward. Sir, I asked Evan to assist with reception setup. We were short on time. The room became colder. Brooks stared at her rank. Then her name tape. Major Mercer. Yes, sir. Relation? Allison barely managed. My husband, sir. The general looked from her to me. Then back at the boot brush. I saw the exact moment he understood. Not everything. Enough. He did not shout. Good generals rarely need to. Your husband. Yes, sir. And you assigned him to clean Major Cole's boots. Allison opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Derek tried. Sir, I should have handled it myself. Brooks turned to him. Yes, Major. 2 words. Derek looked like he would rather be back in Afghanistan. Then Brooks faced me. Mr. Mercer, would you join me at the head table? Allison stared. I did too. Sir, I wasn't invited as a guest. You are now. A few people looked at Allison. That was the moment she finally understood what she had done. Not because my medal made cleaning a boot shameful. Because she had tried to use her rank and professional circle to make her husband small. And the most senior officer in the building had just made it impossible for everyone to pretend they had not seen it. I placed the cloth on the table. Then followed General Brooks across the room. Behind me, I heard the command sergeant major say quietly to Derek. Major, clean your own damn boots next time. The reception had not even started. But my marriage had just become the most uncomfortable thing in the room. And what Allison did not know yet was that General Brooks recognized more than my medal. He also recognized my name from a complaint currently sitting at division headquarters. A complaint I had filed 6 weeks earlier about Allison using her position to interfere with my veterans nonprofit, pressure subordinate officers into supporting her private requests, and retaliate against a captain who refused to give Derek preferential access to a military contract. The boot was not the beginning. It was simply the first time a room full of witnesses saw the same pattern at once. General Brooks did not ask about the boot again during the reception. That made Allison more nervous than if he had. He seated me at the head table between a retired brigade command sergeant major and a Gold Star father from Pueblo. Nobody mentioned the polishing brush. Nobody needed to. Major Derek Cole spent the next 40 minutes avoiding eye contact with me. Allison stood near the back of the room with the brigade staff. Every few minutes, I caught her looking over. Not angry anymore. Worried. She knew General Brooks. More importantly, she knew he was not sentimental. The salute had not been theater. It was custom. Medal of Honor recipients are traditionally saluted regardless of rank. Brooks had done what many service members would have done once they recognized me. The problem for Allison was what the salute revealed to everyone else. She had spent months presenting me as the retired husband who no longer understood how the real army worked. Then a 2-star general treated me with more visible respect than anyone else in the room. That contradiction was hard to hide. After the reception, Colonel Marianne Holt stopped me near the hallway. "Mr. Mercer." "Colonel." She studied my face. "I knew I recognized you. Happens. I feel terrible that I didn't place you immediately. Please don't." She smiled. Then her expression tightened. "May I ask something uncomfortable?" "You can ask." "What exactly happened before General Brooks arrived?" I looked toward the reception room. Allison was still inside. Derek too. I was helping with setup. "I heard that part. Derek got mud on his boot. And Major Mercer asked you to clean it." "Yes." Holt's jaw tightened. "Did she order you?" "I'm a civilian." "That wasn't my question." "Fair." She spoke to me like she expected compliance. "Because you're her husband?" "Probably." "Because she thought you were supporting the event?" "Also probably." "Did she identify you to anyone as volunteer support?" "No." "Were you on an official volunteer roster?" "No." That mattered. Not because cleaning a boot required federal paperwork. Because Allison had blurred personal help and official tasking. Again. Colonel Holt exhaled. "I'm going to ask both majors for statements. You don't have to turn this into something bigger." She looked directly at me. "Mr. Mercer, with respect, that decision is not yours." I almost laughed. I had heard that sentence before. Compliance systems have their own version of mercy. People often imagine that if the person embarrassed or harmed says, "Forget it," everything should stop. But commands do not investigate only for the victim. They investigate because behavior may affect the organization. Holt continued. "I'm already aware there is a division-level review involving Major Mercer. That confirmed what I suspected." "Brooks knows?" "I can't discuss the details." "You just did." I said review. "Fair." Then she lowered her voice. "Were you expecting him to recognize you?" "No." "Did you arrange any of this?" "No." "Did you tell him about today beforehand?" "No." She nodded. I needed to ask. "I understand." Before she left, she said. "You should know the boot itself probably isn't the central issue." "I know. The context may be." That was exactly right. The complaint I filed 6 weeks earlier had nothing to do with our marriage being unhappy. It started with Summit Veterans Transition Network. The nonprofit where I worked. Small organization. 3 offices. Employment counseling. Disability navigation. Emergency housing referrals. We also partnered with defense contractors willing to create apprenticeship programs for medically separated service members. One of those companies was Horizon Tactical Systems. Mid-sized. Communications equipment. Vehicle integration. They were competing for a subcontract connected to a brigade modernization effort. Not a contract Allison controlled. But her brigade provided operational feedback. That made access to staff valuable. Derek knew it. One evening Allison asked me to introduce him to Summit's executive director, Laura Mendoza. "Why?" "He wants to discuss veteran hiring." "Then email her. You know her. So do half the employers in Colorado Springs." "Evan." I knew that tone. "What does he actually want?" "He wants a meeting." "With Horizon?" She hesitated. That answered me. "No." "Why?" "Because Summit's employer relationships are not your brigade networking tool." That's dramatic. It's accurate. Derek is trying to help veterans. Then he can contact Laura through the public address. Allison became irritated. "He has legitimate professional reasons." Then legitimate channels will work. That should have ended it. It did not. 3 days later, one of Summit's program managers told me an Army major had contacted her saying I had already cleared a discussion between Derek and Horizon's regional director. I had not. I called Derek. "Did you tell Summit I approved a meeting?" "No. They said you used my name." "I said you were familiar with the initiative." "That isn't what they heard." "Well, maybe they misunderstood." "Don't use my name again." He laughed. "Come on, Evan." "No. You really treat everything like some ethics seminar. Because conflicts get ugly when people pretend they're informal." He became cold. "Your wife is trying to build partnerships. My wife can build them without borrowing mine." The next week, Captain Noah Reed refused to add Derek to a technical vendor demonstration because Derek was not part of the acquisition or evaluation team. That was proper. Allison called Noah into her office. According to Noah's later written statement, she told him. Major Cole supports me directly. If he asks for access relevant to brigade planning, I expect the staff to facilitate. Noah asked for the request in writing. Allison told him he was being obstructive. 3 days later, Noah was removed as lead planner for a high-visibility exercise. The official reason was need for greater flexibility and command responsiveness. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. Noah came to me because he knew Summit had been contacted too. I told him immediately. You need your own chain. Don't use me. He went to the Brigade Inspector General representative. I separately reported the attempted use of Summit relationships because it involved my organization and my wife's staff. That was how the division review began. Not because I wanted to ruin Allison. Because her name and Derek's requests kept appearing in places where they should not. By the time of the Heritage reception, division had already collected emails, statements, calendar entries, tasking messages. The boot simply added something new. Witnesses. A visible example of how Allison behaved when she expected personal loyalty to substitute for boundaries. She came home at 8:40 that night. I was sitting at the kitchen table. She dropped her purse onto the counter. What did you tell Brooks? Nothing. Don't do that. Do what? Pretend you don't know what I'm asking. I told him nothing before today. After? Mostly talked about veterans' employment. He asked about the boot? No. She stared at me. He said nothing. Not to me. Her shoulders dropped slightly. Then she noticed my expression. What? Colonel Holt asked. Allison went pale. What did you say? The truth. Which version? I almost smiled. That sentence is the problem. You know what I mean. No. I actually don't. She paced. I asked you to help because we were short on time. You asked me to clean Derek's boot because you didn't want him embarrassed when the general arrived. That is not some career-ending offense. I didn't say it was. You're acting like it proves something. It proves you expected me to do it. You're my husband. There it was again. As if marriage created a private rank structure. So spouses help each other. I was helping you. Yes. Derek is not you. He is my colleague. He has hands. That isn't the point. What is? She stopped. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then. You embarrassed me. I laughed once. I embarrassed you. When Brooks saluted you, everyone looked at me. I didn't ask him to salute. You could have told people who you were. Why? Because then none of this would have happened. That sentence told me everything. In Allison's mind, the mistake was not telling me to clean the boot. The mistake was not knowing everyone else would consider me important. So if I didn't have the medal, it would have been fine? She froze. That's not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. No. If I were just your medically retired husband with no photograph in headquarters, cleaning Derek's boots would be okay? Stop twisting this. I'm not. She looked furious. Then frightened. The division review was already bad enough. I sat straighter. So you know. Of course I know. How much? Enough. Did anyone tell you not to discuss it with me? Yes. Then don't. She ignored that. Did you file because Noah asked you? No. Did Laura? No. Then why? Because Derek used my non-profit relationship after I told him not to. That could have been resolved privately. I tried. And now division thinks I retaliated against Noah. Did you remove him after he refused Derek access? He was difficult. That wasn't my question. He challenged guidance constantly. Was he bad at his job? Silence. Allison. No. There it was. Then why remove him? He was creating friction. By asking for written authority? Her jaw tightened. Sometimes leaders need people who understand intent without demanding paperwork for every decision. That is exactly what gets people into trouble. She slammed her hand on the counter. You always do this. What? Make everyone sound corrupt because they don't operate like you. No. You've been out 4 years, Evan. I know. You don't understand staff work anymore. Maybe. Derek does. There he was again. I looked at her. Then maybe you should be married to Derek. She went still. I regretted it immediately. Not because the sentence was completely unfair. Because cheap jealousy would make a serious problem easier for her to dismiss. Allison lowered her voice. There is nothing between me and Derek. Then stop making this about an affair. You brought him up. I brought up how much authority you let him borrow. She looked away. That landed closer. I continued. You know he used your name with Summit. He was enthusiastic. He implied I had approved access. I told him to clear it with you. He didn't. Silence. You knew? I knew he was reaching out. And when I told you no, I thought you were being territorial. With my civilian employer? With your connections? I stared at her. You mean resources? No. Yes. She sat down across from me. For the first time, she looked tired instead of angry. I am close to Lieutenant Colonel. I know. This brigade matters. I know. My evaluation matters. I know. Derek gets things done. And Noah? He slows things down. Because he asks whether they're authorized. You make it sound simple. Some parts are. She covered her face. Then whispered. Brooks asked for my office computer. That was new. What? Division Legal served a preservation notice. I said nothing. They're pulling emails, Teams messages, calendar records. That is normal if there's an investigation. Normal? Her eyes snapped up. This could destroy my career. You said the complaint was nothing. That was before today. The boot didn't create the emails. She stared at me. That sentence hurt because she knew it was true. At 9:17, her phone rang. Colonel Holt. Allison answered. Yes, ma'am. She listened. Her face drained. Tomorrow morning? Another pause. Yes, ma'am. She ended the call. What happened? I've been temporarily reassigned from brigade operations duties. Not suspended from the army. Not fired. Not stripped of rank. Removed from the position where she could influence the people and records involved in the review. Who's taking over? Lieutenant Colonel Vargas. And Derek? She looked at me. Same. That mattered. Derek had also been moved out of the planning channel pending review. Allison's voice became thin. Holt said neither of us is to contact Noah, Summit, Horizon, or anyone involved except through counsel or investigators. That makes sense. Stop saying that. What? That everything destroying my life makes sense. I looked at her. It isn't destroying your life. It feels like it. It is restricting your authority while they determine what happened. She laughed bitterly. You sound like a regulation. Right now, regulations may be the only thing protecting everyone. Including her. She did not see that yet. The next morning, division investigators opened the preserved messages. One chain became important almost immediately. Derek had written. Noah is refusing access again. Says vendor contact needs formal coordination. Allison replied. He is too rigid. I need people who understand who is on the team. Derek. Want me to push through XO? Allison. No. I'll handle Noah. You work the civilian side. Evan knows Mendoza and Horizon. He'll complain, but he'll get over it. Then Derek asked. You sure? Allison answered. He's my husband. He doesn't get to create walls between my mission and his network. That message had been written 5 weeks before she handed me Derek's muddy boot. The investigators did not care about the symbolism. They cared about the sentence. Because Allison had put in writing the exact belief I had been trying to explain. That marriage gave her a claim over resources that were not hers. That resistance from me was something to manage. And that Derek could act on that assumption. The boot had made her freeze. The email was what made Division stop treating the complaint as a marital misunderstanding. By Wednesday morning, nobody at Division headquarters cared that General Brooks had saluted me. The photograph from the reception had already spread through half the post. Someone had apparently snapped the exact moment. Me standing beside the head table. Boot brush still visible on the side table. Brooks saluting. Allison in the background. Frozen. It was the kind of image people loved because it looked like a perfect reversal. Quiet husband humiliated. General walks in. Truth revealed. But investigations do not run on good photographs. They run on records. And Allison's records were worse. The division inquiry was led by Lieutenant Colonel Pamela Reyes from an organization outside Allison's brigade. That mattered. No direct rating relationship. No dependence on Colonel Holt. No personal loyalty to Derek. She interviewed me Thursday morning. The first thing she said was, I'm not investigating whether Major Mercer was disrespectful to her husband. Good. I'm investigating possible misuse of position, improper influence, retaliation, and inappropriate attempts to leverage outside relationships. That sounds bigger. It is. She opened a folder. Let's start with Summit Veterans Transition Network. I explained my role. Part-time program director. Civilian nonprofit. No military contract authority. No procurement role. No ability to award business to Horizon Tactical Systems. Did Summit have any financial relationship with Major Mercer's brigade? No. Did you? No. Any personal investment in Horizon? No. Did Major Cole know that? He should have. How? I told him. When? I gave her the date. She already had the call record. That told me how far the review had gone. Reyes asked. What did you understand Major Cole wanted? Access. To whom? Laura Mendoza at Summit. Then through Summit to Horizon's regional director. For what purpose? He said veteran hiring and brigade modernization. Did those overlap? They could. But if an active duty major wants access to a defense company connected to a modernization effort, I am not going to create a private introduction through a nonprofit and pretend it is casual. Reyes nodded. Why not? Because even if nothing improper happens, it creates the appearance that access depends on personal relationships. She wrote something. Then. Did Major Mercer ask you to facilitate it? Yes. Once? Several times. Did she threaten you? No. Order you? She can't order me. Did she imply consequences? Not for me. For anyone else? I thought of Noah Reed. That's where I got concerned. Reyes turned a page. Tell me about Captain Reed. Noah refused to add Derek to a vendor demonstration. Were you present? No. How do you know? Noah told me afterward. Then I need what you personally know, not what he told you. Fair. So I gave her only my part. Noah contacted me after he had been removed as lead planner. He asked whether Derek had actually been authorized through Summit or Horizon. I told him no. Then Noah said he was going to IG. I told him to use his chain and keep me out of his personnel issue unless investigators asked. Reyes looked up. That was disciplined. It was survival. She almost smiled. Then. Did you discuss Noah with Allison? Yes. When? After he was removed. What did she say? That he was rigid. Creating friction. Not responsive enough to command intent. Did she say his refusal to support Major Cole was part of it? She didn't say those exact words. Did you infer it? Yes. Why? Because that was what we were arguing about. Again, she wrote. The interview lasted 2 hours. At the end, Reyes closed the folder. One more question. Okay. Why did you file? That sounded simple. It wasn't. I thought about giving the clean answer. Protect the nonprofit. Protect Noah. Protect boundaries. All true. But incomplete. Because I was angry. Reyes waited. At Allison? Yes. Why? Because she kept acting like anything connected to me was available to her if her mission sounded important enough. Was the complaint retaliation for marital conflict? No. How do you separate the two? Evidence. She said nothing. So I continued. I was angry as a husband. I filed as a civilian employee because Derek used Summit's name and my relationship after I told him not to. That mattered to me. Maybe more than to her. If I could not separate my feelings from the facts, I would become exactly what Allison kept accusing me of being. A bitter husband turning an unhappy marriage into a career weapon. Reyes nodded. That distinction will matter. I know. She stood. And the boot? What about it? Did it cause you to expand your complaint? No. Do you want it included? I thought. As a witness event if you think it shows something relevant. Relevant to what? Her expectation that personal relationship equals compliance. Reyes studied me. That is also how I read it. Then. But we will not treat humiliating a Medal of Honor recipient as a separate offense. Good. Your medal is not the issue. Exactly. That was the first thing about the whole mess that felt clean. If the investigation turned into, she made a hero clean boots, it would become theater. Allison's problem was not that she accidentally humiliated someone important. Her problem was that she had started believing importance determined whose boundaries deserved respect. The records showed it. More messages came out that week. Most were not explosive. That made them stronger. Patterns usually look ordinary one line at a time. Derek. Can I get into Friday's vendor brief? Allison. Noah will resist. Tell him I want you there. Derek. Official tasking? Allison. Not necessary. He knows what I mean. Another. Derek. Mendoza still hasn't answered. Allison. Evan is being stubborn. I'll deal with him tonight. Another. Derek. Orizon regional guy says he knows Evan. Can you get Evan to make the intro? Allison. He hates mixing civilian work and army business. Leave it with me. Then one that made my stomach drop. Derek. If Reed keeps blocking this, we need someone else running the modernization lane. Allison. Already thinking the same. He mistakes process for judgment. 3 days later, Noah was removed. That was not automatic proof of retaliation. Maybe Noah genuinely had performance issues. Maybe other officers had complained. Maybe Allison had broader reasons. So Reyes pulled evaluations, counseling records, emails, exercise after action reports. Noah's last officer evaluation before removal was strong. Top third among captains. Praised for attention to acquisition rules. Praised for disciplined staff judgment. Then, after the Derek dispute, Allison drafted an interim counseling note describing him as excessively procedural and insufficiently responsive to commander priorities. There was no misconduct allegation. No failed mission. No safety issue. Just friction. Colonel Holt called me Friday. I wanted you to hear this directly. What? Captain Reed is being restored as lead planner pending final review. Because the removal was improper? We have not reached final findings. Then why restore him? Because the stated basis no longer supports keeping him out while the inquiry continues. That was careful language. I respected it. What about Allison? Still reassigned. Derek? Same. Anything else? A pause. Major Cole's government email access has been preserved for review. I almost laughed. I assume he enjoys that. Probably not. Then Holt became serious. Evan, do not contact either of them about the investigation. I won't. Even if Allison comes home angry. That told me they were worried. Understood. She hesitated. Are you staying at the house? Yes. Do you feel unsafe? No. That answer was immediate. Allison had never threatened me physically. Never damaged property. Never tried to stop me from leaving. This was not that kind of marriage. It was a marriage where power had slowly leaked into places it did not belong. That evening she came home after 9. No uniform. Jeans. Sweatshirt. She looked exhausted. I got interviewed. I assumed. 4 hours. I said nothing. They showed me messages. Okay. You gave them your texts. Only what they requested. She looked at me sharply. They have our messages too? Some. You volunteered private marriage conversations? Only messages relevant to Summit and Derek. Her jaw tightened. That is still our marriage. No. The parts where you discuss using my civilian contacts for brigade business stopped being only our marriage. She sat down heavily. They asked whether I removed Noah because of Derek. What did you say? The truth. Which is that Noah was difficult. I waited. She looked at me. And yes, Derek complained about him. Did that influence you? She hesitated. Yes. There it was. Not enough by itself. But honest. How much? I don't know. That's not reassuring. I know. She rubbed her eyes. I thought Noah was making simple things harder. Because he wanted written authority? Yes. That was his job. I know that now. Now? She looked angry again. You love this. What? You love being right after the fact. I almost answered. Then stopped. Because maybe I did. There was satisfaction in watching the person who dismissed your concerns finally confront them. Pretending otherwise would be dishonest. So I said. A little. That surprised her. You admit it? Yes. Nice. That doesn't make the evidence false. Her face fell. No. It didn't. She leaned back. They asked about the boot. I figured. I told them it was stupid. That's accurate. I told them you were helping me. Also accurate. I told them I shouldn't have asked. I looked at her. Do you mean that? Yes. Why? She hesitated. Then gave the answer I was afraid of. Because everyone saw. I laughed once. She winced. That's not what I meant. It is still what you mean. No. Would it have been wrong if Brooks never walked in? She looked at the floor. There. The question she could not escape. Finally. Yes. That was the first time she had said it. Why? She swallowed. Because I asked you to do something humiliating to prove you wouldn't challenge me. I stopped. She continued before she lost the nerve. I was angry that you had refused to help Derek. So the boot was connected. Not consciously. That doesn't mean much. I know. Her voice shook. Derek had mud on his boot. I saw the problem. I saw you. And some part of me thought. She stopped. What? If you did it, maybe I would know you were still on my side. There it was. Not logistics. Loyalty. The boot had been a test. Same pattern as everything else. Help Derek. Open the contact. Stop asking for process. Accept my judgment. Prove you are with me. I said. Marriage is not supposed to require demonstrations of obedience. I know. You say that now. Yes. Do you understand why I filed? Her eyes filled. I'm starting to. That answer hurt worse than denial. Because it meant maybe the woman I had loved was still in there. Just buried under ambition, resentment, and a professional culture where she had started confusing decisiveness with entitlement. Then she said. There's something else. What? They're investigating Derek separately. I assumed. No. More than the summit issue. I went still. What happened? I don't know everything. Then don't speculate. She gave me a bitter smile. Still you? Yes. She continued. They asked me whether Derek ever told me he had a personal relationship with anyone at Horizon. My stomach tightened. Did he? No. Do you know one exists? I don't know. Then why ask? Unless investigators had found one. The answer came Monday. Not through Allison. Through the division review. Derek's sister, Lauren Cole, worked for Horizon Tactical Systems. Not in Colorado. Not in sales. She was a senior contracts manager at corporate headquarters. Family employment alone was not misconduct. But Derek had never disclosed it when he pushed for access to an Horizon demonstration tied to his brigade's modernization effort. Worse, investigators found messages between them. Lauren. Can you get us in front of the brigade before the next vendor cycle? Derek. Working it. Allison is supportive. Lauren. Need someone to break the logjam. Derek. I'm trying civilian channels too. Her husband knows people. There it was. Suddenly the review changed shape. Allison's boundary problems were still hers. Her treatment of Noah was still hers. Her belief that my network belonged partly to her was still hers. But Derek's motives might have been different from what he told her. He had framed his requests as mission efficiency, veteran hiring, staff coordination. Now Division had evidence that his own family connection to Horizon may have been part of why he kept pushing. And Allison had given him influence without asking the most basic question. Why does this matter so much to you? That afternoon, Colonel Holt notified Allison that she had been removed from consideration for an upcoming lieutenant colonel-level key developmental assignment pending final disposition of the investigation. Not permanently. Not yet. But the board packet would not move forward while the findings were unresolved. For the first time, Allison's promotion path took a direct hit. She came home carrying the notification, placed it on the table, then looked at me. You were right about Derek. I shook my head. No. Her face tightened. What? I was right that his requests needed process. That's what I mean. No. It matters. I pointed to the paper. Do not replace, I trusted him without controls with, my husband correctly guessed he was bad. She stared at me. Why are you defending him? I'm not. Then what are you doing? Keeping your choices attached to you. That silenced her. Because Derek might have used her. He might have hidden a conflict. He might have pushed his own interests under the language of mission. But he did not write Allison's messages. He did not remove Noah for her. He did not tell me my civilian network was hers to use. He did not put the boot brush in my hand. The investigation was finally separating two stories that Allison had spent months blending together. What Derek wanted. And what Allison chose to do for him. By the end of that week, Division had enough evidence to refer Derek's conduct for a separate ethics and conflict of interest review. And enough evidence to begin drafting findings on Allison. The general's salute had embarrassed her for 5 minutes. The records were about to cost her much more. The investigation separated Derek's conduct from Allison's before it reached final findings. That mattered more than anything else. It would have been easy for Allison to tell herself she had been manipulated. Some of that was true. Derek had hidden his sister's position at Horizon. He had pushed for access while knowing his family had a direct business interest. He had used language like mission need and team support to make requests sound cleaner than they were. But none of that erased Allison's choices. Lieutenant Colonel Reyes made that clear in the command investigation summary. The first substantiated finding involved Captain Noah Reed. Allison had removed him from a high-visibility planning role after he repeatedly refused to give Derek informal access to vendor activity without written authority. The investigation did not find that Allison had fabricated misconduct. She had not. It found something simpler. Her stated reasons for moving Noah were not supported by his record. His evaluations were strong. His planning products were timely. Other supervisors described him as cautious, not obstructive. And the timing of his removal closely followed Derek's complaints. The report concluded Allison had allowed personal preference and loyalty to affect a personnel decision. Not criminal. Not dramatic. Still serious. The second finding involved my civilian network. Allison had repeatedly attempted to use our marriage to gain access to contacts connected to Summit and Horizon. The report quoted her message. "He's my husband. He doesn't get to create walls between my mission and his network." Reyes wrote that the statement reflected an improper assumption that a spouse's independent civilian relationships were available for official use because of marriage. That sentence ended up bothering Allison more than the retaliation finding. Maybe because it was so personal. No complicated military rule. No obscure ethics standard. Just a husband saying, "This belongs to me." And a wife writing, "Not entirely." The third finding involved Derek's informal authority. Allison had repeatedly allowed him to speak as though he represented her direction without requiring clear delegation. That created confusion throughout the staff. Several officers said they could not tell whether a request came from Major Cole or from Major Mercer. One captain described Derek as the unofficial mouthpiece for whatever Allison wanted done without creating a paper trail. That quote hurt. I could tell. Not because it was necessarily fair in every instance. Because it described how people experienced her leadership. The fourth finding concerned the boot. The report did not treat it as misconduct by itself. Instead, it described the event as corroborating evidence of a broader pattern. Allison used a personal relationship to demand compliance in front of military subordinates after I resisted helping Derek through civilian channels. Several witnesses described the request as demeaning, unnecessary, or clearly personal. One captain wrote, "Major Cole initially offered to clean his own boot, but Major Mercer overrode him and directed her husband to do it. The interaction appeared less about the boot than about demonstrating who was expected to comply." That was exactly how it felt. No medal needed. No general salute. No heroic biography. Just the scene. A wife making her husband polish another man's boot because she wanted everyone to know which side of the disagreement mattered. The fifth finding was the one that changed Allison's career. Reyes concluded she had created a retaliatory climate around process challenges. Not retaliation in the broad sense that everyone who disagreed with her suffered. The review did not find that. But in several documented cases, staff members who insisted on written authority or formal coordination were labeled rigid, unhelpful, or disloyal. Noah was the clearest example. Another captain had been removed from a working group. A civilian analyst had been excluded from planning sessions after refusing to share pre-decisional vendor information with Derek. Each case by itself could have been explained. Together, they formed a pattern. Allison had begun treating friction with her preferred methods as evidence that the person creating the friction was the problem. That was leadership by convenience. And convenience does not hold up well under investigation. The report reached Colonel Holt first. Then General Brooks. I did not get a copy. I was not entitled to Allison's entire personnel file. I received only portions affecting my complaint and Summit. Allison received the full findings through counsel. She came home with the packet in a brown envelope. Dropped it on the table. Then stood there looking at it like it might explode. They substantiated 4 of 5 major allegations. I said nothing. The 5th was partially substantiated. What was that? Improper favoritism toward Derek. Why partial? They found I gave him unusual access and influence, but not that I did it because of a romantic relationship. That distinction mattered. Good. She looked at me. You think that's good? It's accurate. She laughed bitterly. You and that word. Yes. She sat. They also said there was no evidence I personally benefited financially. Also good. No evidence I knew about his sister. Good. No evidence I intended to help Orizon win anything. Good. Her eyes filled. Then why do I still feel like they wrote me as corrupt? Did they? No. Then maybe that's not what you're feeling. She stared at me. What am I feeling? I think you wanted the report to say your intent made the rest harmless. That landed. She looked away. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then, I kept thinking if they understood I was trying to make the brigade more responsive, it would matter. It does matter. Not enough. No. She shook her head. I hate that answer. I know. 2 days later, Colonel Holt called Allison into brigade headquarters. General Brooks joined by secure video. Division legal attended. Her attorney too. The outcome was administrative. Not court-martial. Not criminal charges. No handcuffs. No dramatic stripping of rank in the hallway. Allison received a formal letter of reprimand. The filing decision would be made after she submitted a rebuttal. She was permanently removed from her brigade operations assignment. Her upcoming key developmental nomination was withdrawn. Her officer evaluation would include the substantiated leadership concerns. She remained a major. She remained in the Army. Her future promotion to lieutenant colonel was now uncertain. Very uncertain. But not mathematically impossible. Derek's case went separately to an ethics review and command channel because of the undisclosed family connection. That was exactly how it should have happened. His conflict was his. Allison's decisions were hers. When she came home, she was still in uniform. She walked into the kitchen, placed her car keys down, then said, "I'm done in operations. I'm sorry." She almost laughed. "You are?" "Yes. You filed the complaint." "I did. And you're sorry?" "I'm sorry you made choices that got you here." That made her angry. For about 3 seconds. Then the anger disappeared. She sat down. "Holt told me something." "What?" She said the worst part wasn't Derek. I waited. She said I let one person become a shortcut around the staff. That sounded right. She said once people realized Derek could get things through me informally, they stopped trusting formal process. Also right. Allison rubbed both temples. I thought I was rewarding initiative. You were rewarding access. She looked up. That's harsh. Is it wrong? She opened her mouth. Then closed it. No. That was becoming more common. Not agreement with me. Agreement with reality. She took off her wedding ring. Set it beside the keys. I stared. What are you doing? I don't know. That's usually a bad reason to remove a wedding ring. She gave me a tired look. I know. Then. Do you still want to be married to me? There it was. The question we had avoided. I could have answered quickly. No. That would have been satisfying. Maybe even partly true. But 9 years deserved more care than that. I don't know. She looked hurt. Then nodded. Fair. Do you? Yes. Immediate. That surprised me. Even now. Especially now. Why? Because I finally understand what I was doing. That doesn't automatically repair it. I know. Understanding after getting caught isn't the same as change. I know. Then why should I trust you? She started crying. I don't know. At least she did not promise. That was something. Then she said, I treated our marriage like another command relationship. Yes. I thought because you loved me, resistance meant disloyalty. Yes. I thought your medal had made you bitter about authority. No. I know. She wiped her face. I used Derek because he made things easy. There it was. Not attraction. Not romance. Ease. He never made me explain why, she said. He just moved. And I asked why. Every time. That bothered you. Yes. Why? Because when you asked, sometimes I realized I didn't have a good answer. That was probably the most honest thing she had said. Derek made her feel decisive. I made her feel accountable. She had begun preferring the first. Then she whispered. The boot was about that. I said nothing. I wanted one moment where you just did what I asked. There were easier ways to ask for that. I know. You chose Derek's boots. I know. Why? Her face twisted. Because I was angry enough to want you embarrassed. Silence. There it was. Not logistics. Not urgency. Not accident. She had wanted to hurt me. A little. Not destroy me. Just push me down enough to restore balance in her mind. That matters more to me than Brooks seeing it, I said. She nodded. I know. More than the medal. I know. More than what everyone thinks. I know. Then she cried harder. I'm sorry. I believed her. That was the problem. If I thought she felt nothing, leaving would be easy. But consequences are not cancelled by sincere regret. I need time, I said. She nodded. I'll move out. I looked at her. You don't have to. I think I do. Where? Temporary lodging. Allison. I need to stop using proximity to pressure you too. That surprised me. Maybe the investigation had taught her something. Or maybe losing the job she wanted had finally made the lesson expensive enough to stick. She moved into a furnished apartment near Post the next day. No dramatic fight. No smashed frames. No last accusation. She packed uniforms, running shoes, toiletries, and 3 boxes. At the door, she looked back. Evan? Yes? If Brooks had never recognized you. She stopped. I waited. I still would have been wrong. That was the answer I had wanted weeks earlier. Too late to erase the moment. Not too late to matter. The following Monday, Derek received his own preliminary findings. Failure to disclose an immediate family relationship relevant to an official matter. Improper attempts to gain access to vendor-related activities. Use of another officer's authority to advance requests outside normal process. Possible ethics violations connected to his sister's employer. His clearance was not revoked. He was not accused of taking money. No evidence showed he promised Orizon a contract. But his staff position was removed, and his matter was referred for adverse administrative action. When Allison heard, she did not say, "He ruined me." She said, "I should have asked why he wanted access so badly. That was better. Because the hardest part of accountability is giving other people their share of blame without handing them yours. General Brooks had saluted me once. The Army talked about it for a week. Then moved on. The investigation cared about something much less cinematic. Emails. Taskings. Personnel actions. Repeated shortcuts. And one officer who had slowly stopped believing that people closest to her were allowed to put up walls she did not approve. The salute made Allison freeze. The findings made her finally understand why. Allison submitted a rebuttal to the reprimand. I was glad she did. Not because I wanted the findings erased. Because due process matters most when you dislike the person's argument. Her attorney helped her build a careful response. She acknowledged using poor judgment with Derek. Acknowledged that Noah Reed's removal happened too close to his resistance to Derek's access. Acknowledged that she should have disclosed and controlled Derek's informal influence more clearly. But she disputed 2 things. First, that she had intentionally retaliated against Noah. Second, that her attempts to use my summit contacts were an abuse of military position rather than a marital request that had become entangled with work. Those were reasonable arguments to make. I disagreed with parts of them. That did not make the rebuttal dishonest. The filing authority reviewed everything. The investigation. Her response. Past evaluations. Deployment record. Awards. Statements from previous commanders. And one letter from Colonel Holt that surprised Allison. Holt did not destroy her. She wrote that Allison had been an exceptionally capable logistics and operations officer for most of her career. Strong under pressure. Good at coordinating complex movements. Trusted during deployment. But Holt also wrote, Major Mercer's recent conduct reflects a concerning shift from decisive leadership toward personalized control of staff processes and relationships. Her performance history mitigates the misconduct but does not erase the need for formal accountability. That was probably the fairest summary anyone could have written. The reprimand went into Allison's official military personnel file. Permanent. That mattered. A locally filed reprimand might disappear with a transfer. A permanently filed one followed her. Promotion boards could see it. Assignment managers could see it. Future commanders could see it. Not automatic career death. But no longer something she could leave behind with a new duty station. When she called me after the decision, her voice was calm. Permanent. I'm sorry. This time I believe you. What changed? I stopped hearing "I'm sorry" as "I think the army is wrong." That was progress. Then, "My attorney says I can appeal later." You should if you have grounds. You don't mind? It isn't my record. Silence. Then she laughed softly. That sentence would have made me furious 6 months ago. I know. Now it sounds obvious. Most boundaries do after you stop fighting them. She let that sit. Our separation continued. We started marriage counseling once a week. Not because I had decided to stay. Because I wanted to understand whether there was still a marriage worth deciding about. Our counselor was a civilian named Dr. Meredith Shaw. No military affiliation. That was deliberate. The first session went badly. Meredith asked, "What do each of you believe broke trust?" Allison answered first. "The investigation." I turned toward her. She immediately realized what she had said. "No." Meredith waited. Allison corrected herself. "My behavior that led to the investigation." "Better." Then Meredith asked me. "The boot." Allison looked surprised. "Not the complaint? Not Noah? Not Derek? The boot." I explained. The other issues showed me she had bad boundaries. I looked at Allison. The boot showed me she wanted to hurt me. Allison lowered her eyes. Meredith asked, "Did you?" Allison took almost a minute to answer. "Yes." "Why?" I was angry. At what? That he kept saying no. To what? Using his contacts. Anything else? Allison looked at me. He stopped admiring me. That surprised both of us. What? She swallowed. When we were younger, Evan thought I was good at everything. I never thought that. You did. I thought you were good at a lot. That's what I mean. Meredith interrupted. No. That distinction may matter. Allison nodded. Then continued. As I got promoted, he challenged me more. Because you got promoted? I asked. No. She shook her head. Because I started bringing command home. That was more accurate. She looked at Meredith. And instead of asking whether I was becoming difficult, I told myself Evan was resentful because his army career ended. I sat very still. There it was. A belief I had felt but never heard her admit. You thought I was jealous. Yes. Of you? Yes. Were you ever going to ask? I thought I already knew. That sentence explained too much of our marriage. Allison had stopped asking questions when she believed she understood the answer. Meredith asked, "Where did Major Cole fit into that?" Allison did not hesitate. He admired me. Professionally? Yes. Romantically? No. Are you sure? Yes. I believed her. The investigation had found no affair. No intimate messages. No hotel receipts. No hidden relationship. Nothing. Derek's importance had been simpler and, in some ways, more dangerous. He validated her. Allison continued. If I said something needed to happen, Derek asked how fast. And Evan? Asked why. Meredith looked at me. Did you? Yes. Constantly? Probably too often. Allison shook her head. No. I looked at her. She continued. I used to think too often. What changed? I realized the questions only bothered me when I didn't like the answer. That session ended without resolution. But it was the first conversation in years where neither of us tried to win. Meanwhile, Derek's case moved faster. His family connection to Orizon was substantiated. So was his failure to disclose it when participating in discussions where Orizon was a potential vendor. Investigators found no evidence he received money. No stock. No promise of employment. No bribery. No contract manipulation. That distinction saved him from much worse consequences. But the messages with his sister were enough to show that he had tried to create unofficial access for a company where an immediate family member worked. His command issued a general officer memorandum of reprimand. His evaluation was referred. He was removed from duties connected to acquisition, modernization, and vendor engagement. Then reassigned to a non-key staff role at another installation. He remained a major. For now. When Allison told me, she looked embarrassed. I wrote him a character statement. I stared at her. When? Before his final decision. What did you say? That I never saw him take money or promise Orizon special treatment. That's fair if true. It is. Anything else? That I believed he was mission-focused. I raised an eyebrow. Still? No. Then why write it? Because what I believed at the time is relevant. She was right. I hated that she was right. That was the correct thing to do, I said. She looked surprised. You mean that? Yes. You don't think I was protecting him? Were you? She thought. A little. Then maybe that part wasn't great. She almost smiled. But the facts you personally knew still matter. That was the difference between revenge and accountability. If Derek did 10 things wrong, he should answer for 10. Not 12 because I disliked him. Noah Reed returned to his lead planning role. His next evaluation specifically noted that he had exercised proper judgment by seeking written authority when vendor access was unclear. He was later selected for resident intermediate level education. No parade. No public apology. Just his career placed back on the track it should have stayed on. Summit received a formal letter from Division Counsel confirming that neither the nonprofit nor its staff had been found to participate in improper vendor access. Laura framed it. Not because it was beautiful. Because she was still angry. You realize your marriage generated paperwork for my wall. I'm proud. You shouldn't be. Still. She pointed at me. And if another officer calls asking for a casual introduction to a defense company, I'm forwarding them directly to ethics. Please do. You Army people are exhausting. I'm retired. Apparently not enough. Then came Allison's promotion board. She had been eligible for lieutenant colonel before the investigation began. Under normal circumstances, she would have been competitive. Strong record. Operational assignments. Good evaluations before the referred report. Advanced education. Command potential. But now the board would see the reprimand. The adverse evaluation. The removed assignment. The investigation. Allison knew the odds. She still submitted. I asked why. We were sitting in Meredith's office when it came up. Because I earned the right to be considered. That answer was not arrogance. It was process. So you think you should be promoted? Meredith asked. Allison shook her head. I think the board should decide. I looked at her. That was a major change. Old Allison would have said the reprimand did not define her. That her record should outweigh one bad period. That she deserved lieutenant colonel. Now she said. They get the whole file. And if they say no? I asked. Then no. There was that word again. No. The word she had spent years treating as unfinished. The promotion list released 5 months later. I knew before Allison called. Military networks are fast. Especially bad news. Her name was not on it. She called at 7:03 in the morning. I didn't make it. I heard. Of course you did. You okay? No. Honest. Then silence. I thought I was ready for it. You probably were. Doesn't make it painless. No. I watched people I mentored get selected. That has to hurt. It does. She breathed out. Part of me wants to say the board only saw my worst year. I waited. But that year is part of my record. Yes. I hate that. I know. Do you think I deserve lieutenant colonel? That was dangerous. Not because I could not answer. Because she still cared too much about my verdict. I think the board had information I didn't. She laughed bitterly. That's evasive. It's true. Evan. Do you want my personal answer? Yes. I think the Allison I knew 5 years ago could have been an excellent lieutenant colonel. She became silent. And the Allison from last year? No. I heard her breathing change. I continued. You were too willing to turn disagreement into disloyalty. Yes. You gave Derek too much informal authority. Yes. You punished process friction. Yes. And you brought it home. Yes. I waited. Then added. That doesn't mean you can never lead well again. She cried quietly. But it may mean the Army doesn't owe you another chance at higher rank. I know. That was the end of the conversation. No fight. No accusation that I enjoyed her failure. No demand that I reassure her. 3 weeks later, Allison received notification that she would be reassigned to a training development position at Fort Leavenworth. Still meaningful work. No direct troop leadership. No procurement. No key developmental track. She could remain in service and compete again later if eligible. Or she could begin considering retirement when she reached the required service point. Her career was not over. The version she had planned was. That distinction mattered. Our marriage remained uncertain too. Counseling improved communication. It did not erase what happened. Some evenings I missed her enough to consider asking her home. Other days I remembered the brush in my hand and heard. Just once, don't turn everything into some wounded veteran pride issue. Sincere regret could not make me unknow what she had been willing to do when she thought nobody important was watching. Then, during one counseling session, Meredith asked Allison a question neither of us expected. If General Brooks had never walked into that room, what do you think would have happened? Allison stared at the floor. For the investigation? For your marriage? Long silence. Then Allison looked at me. I think I would have gotten worse. I felt something cold move through my chest. She continued. I would have taken Evan doing it as proof that I could still push him when I needed to. The room went silent. And the next time he said no? Meredith asked. I would have pushed harder. Allison started crying. Maybe not with boots. She wiped her face. But with something. That answer scared me more than the investigation ever had. Because for months, I had thought the general's salute exposed who Allison had become. Now she was telling me something harder. The salute might also have stopped her before she became worse. And for the first time, I had to decide whether learning the lesson before she destroyed everything was enough reason to give our marriage another chance. Allison left for Fort Leavenworth in September. I did not go with her. That was the first decision we made after months of counseling that neither of us tried to disguise as temporary. She rented a townhouse near Post. I stayed in Colorado Springs. We kept counseling by video every other week. Still married. Still separated. Still unsure whether either word mattered more. Her new assignment was in training development. Doctrine updates. Leader education. Scenario design. The kind of work she once would have considered a detour. No battalion command track. No vendor access. No modernization team. No Derek standing beside her saying, I'll make it happen. At first, she hated it. Then something changed. 3 months after arriving, she called me on a Sunday night. I got corrected by a captain today. That sounds dangerous. I survived. What happened? We were reviewing a logistics exercise. Okay. I wanted to cut one approval step because it made the scenario cleaner. Let me guess. The captain asked whether the approval existed because of some previous failure. I smiled. Good captain. Annoyingly. What did you do? Asked her to find out. And? The approval was added after an audit found senior staff had been bypassing a safety review. I laughed. You tried to delete a safeguard created because people like you bypass safeguards. I am aware of the comedy. Did you keep it? Yes. Did you punish the captain for being excessively procedural? Silence. Then. I put her in charge of the revision. That was new. Allison continued. And before you say anything, yes, I noticed what happened. What? She slowed me down. Terrible. And the product got better. That must be devastating. Deeply. We both laughed. For a few minutes, we sounded like ourselves again. Not the married version from the last 2 years. The earlier version. The one I had almost forgotten. Then Allison said. My supervisor told me I'm easier to work with now. That sounds suspicious. I asked why. What did he say? That I stopped confusing speed with competence. That was a brutal sentence. Did you agree? Eventually. I leaned back. Leavenworth may be good for you. I hate that you're right. I didn't say I was. You thought it. Probably. Then she became quieter. I think this is the first job I've had in years where nobody cares who you are. I went still. What does that mean? No one here knows the Medal of Honor story unless they Google you. Good. No one asks whether you're coming to events. Better. No one looks at me like I'm the woman from that photo. I knew the photo. Brooks saluting. Me holding the brush. Allison behind us. It had circulated far beyond the original room. Not officially. Just army gossip. One image able to flatten months of context into one moral. I can be Major Mercer here without being your wife first. That sounds healthy. I think it is. Then she added. And maybe you needed the same thing. I knew exactly what she meant. For years, my identity around her had become 2 things. Medal of Honor recipient. Disappointing husband. Neither was enough. I had started changing too. Summit promoted me to Director of Veteran Programs. More responsibility. Still civilian. Still no interest in using the medal publicly unless it helped a specific cause. Laura Mendoza tried once. We could put it in your bio. No. Donors would care. They can care about the programs. They care about stories. Then tell theirs. She rolled her eyes. You are the worst fundraiser in America. Yet you promoted me. Administrative error. I stayed. And for the first time, Allison did not suggest I should be doing more. That mattered. Our counselor noticed before I did. During a session in January, Meredith asked, "What has changed since the separation?" I answered first. Less pressure. Allison nodded. From me? Yes. What else? I don't feel like every career decision is a referendum on whether I'm ambitious enough for you. Her face tightened. I did that. Yes. I'm sorry. Then Meredith asked Allison, "What changed for you?" She thought. I don't have anyone at home I can turn into staff. That was honest enough to make me laugh. She smiled sadly. I'm serious. I know. If I'm frustrated at work now, I can't come home and make Evan absorb the certainty. Meredith leaned forward. What does that mean? Allison looked at me. I used to come home still feeling like the ranking person in the room. Yes. I didn't consciously think I outranked him. But I expected the same kind of response I got at work. What response? Immediate adjustment. There it was. Not salute. Not obedience in some cartoon sense. Adjustment. If Allison was uncomfortable, the room moved. People revised plans. Changed schedules. Found workarounds. Derek especially. At home, I did not always move. That had begun feeling like disrespect. She continued. At Leavenworth, my supervisor disagrees with me constantly. How do you handle that? Meredith asked. Badly inside. I smiled. And outside? I ask why. That was better. Then Meredith asked the question that had hovered over every session for months. Do either of you want to end the marriage? Silence. Allison looked at me. I looked at her. Then I answered. I don't know if wanting it to survive is the same as believing it should. Allison nodded. I think I'm the opposite. What does that mean? I believe marriages can survive worse than this. Her voice softened. But I don't know whether I'm asking Evan to stay because I love him or because losing him would make the consequences feel final. That stopped me. Meredith did not rescue her. Good counselor. Long silence. Then I said. That's the first thing you've said that makes me trust you more. Allison looked hurt. Why? Because you didn't give me the answer that keeps me. She started crying. Not heavily. Just quietly. That session ended without decision. 2 weeks later, General Brooks contacted me. Not Allison. Me. He was retiring. There would be a division ceremony in Colorado. He wanted me there as one of several veterans he had worked with over his career. I almost declined. Then he called personally. You've hidden long enough, Mercer. Sir, retirement has not improved your diplomacy. Good. I'm not giving a speech. I didn't ask. No uniform. You're retired. No medal display. That one is up to you. I'm serious. So am I. Then Brooks became quieter. I want you there because Ghazni mattered to my career too. That changed the conversation. People always spoke as though the action belonged to me. It did not. There were 31 soldiers involved. A chain of evacuation. Fire support. Pilots. Medics. Command decisions. Brooks had been one of the officers who kept assets coming when our position was falling apart. Okay. You'll come? Yes. Good. Then. And Evan? Yes, sir. Bring whoever you want. He did not say Allison. That was deliberate kindness. I invited her anyway. Not as a test. Because Brooks had known us both. She flew back from Kansas. We arrived separately. That mattered too. No performance. No pretending everything was fixed. At the ceremony, Allison wore service uniform. I wore a dark suit. Brooks saw us and smiled. Major Mercer. Sir. Then he looked at me. No boot brush this time. Allison closed her eyes. I laughed. You've been saving that. Months. Then Brooks did something interesting. He did not salute immediately. He extended his hand first. I shook it. Only after that, before stepping away, he gave the customary salute. I returned it. No room froze this time. No revelation. Everybody already knew. And somehow, that made the moment smaller. Better. During Brooks's remarks, he spoke about command. Not heroism. Command. The longer you stay in authority, he said, the more dangerous it becomes to believe compliance is proof of leadership. Allison sat 3 rows ahead of me. She did not move. Brooks continued. If the only people around you are people who make your life easier, eventually they will make your judgment worse. I thought of Derek. So did Allison. After the ceremony, Brooks found us near the reception table. He spoke to Allison privately first. I stepped away. Later, in the parking lot, she told me what he said. He asked whether I blamed you. What did you say? No. Good. He asked whether I blamed Derek. And? I said partly. Also good. Then he said, don't let partly become conveniently. That sounded exactly like Brooks. Allison looked at me. He said the army can survive one officer making bad decisions. I waited. He said what destroys units is when everyone learns bad decisions are safer to agree with than question. That was Noah's story. The civilian analyst. The captains who watched Derek become unofficial authority. Allison nodded toward the building. He thinks I can recover. Professionally? As a leader. That's different. Yes. She understood now. That mattered. We stood beside her rental car. Then she said, I need to tell you something before I go back. What? I'm not applying for the next promotion board. That surprised me. Why? I'm eligible. I know. My branch manager said I can try again. Then why not? She took a breath. Because I don't want lieutenant colonel enough to build the rest of my life around proving the first board was wrong. I stared at her. Old Allison would have fought. Written appeals. Chased top block evaluations. Found another high visibility assignment. Turned promotion into vindication. What will you do? Finish this assignment. Then? I'm at 18 years. I knew where that was going. Retirement? Probably at 20. That was not failure. But to Allison, a year earlier, retiring as a major would have felt unbearable. Now she said it calmly. Are you sure? No. Good answer. She smiled. I'm learning. Then she asked. What about us? There it was again. Except this time, it did not sound like a demand for outcome. It sounded like a question. I looked at her. I think I know. Her face changed. Not panic. Acceptance. What? I don't want to go back. She closed her eyes. I continued before she could misunderstand. I don't hate you. I know. I believe you've changed. She opened her eyes again. But I don't want our marriage to become the proof that you changed. Tears appeared. That's fair. If I stay, every good thing you do will feel like evidence. Yes. Every bad day will scare me. She nodded. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life checking whether the woman beside me is becoming that person again. She cried quietly. I hated hurting her. Still said it. I want a divorce. For months, I had imagined that sentence would feel triumphant. It did not. It felt final. Allison looked down. Then removed her wedding ring. Not dramatically. Not like the night she first set it beside her keys. This time, she held it in her palm. I thought I could fix enough that you wouldn't say that. I know. She swallowed. Part of me still wants to argue. I know. Then she laughed through tears. That's probably why I shouldn't. I smiled sadly. Probably. She closed her fingers around the ring. I won't fight you. Thank you. I mean legally. I know. I may still hate you personally for a while. That seems healthy. She laughed. Then we hugged. The first time in months. No romance in it. No reconciliation. Just 9 years of marriage being allowed to end without another contest over who got the last word. Allison flew back to Kansas the next morning. 2 days later, she emailed me the contact information for her attorney. No dramatic message. Just. I told counsel I want a fair division and no unnecessary fight. Send everything through your lawyer if that's easier. I replied. It is. Thank you. Then she wrote one more line. For what it's worth, I'm glad Brooks walked into that room. I stared at it. Months earlier, she had believed the general's salute humiliated her. Now she understood it differently. Not as the moment a famous husband embarrassed an ambitious wife. As the moment everyone stopped helping her pretend that obedience was the same thing as respect. The investigation had cost her an assignment. A promotion. Her reputation inside one brigade. The divorce would cost her the marriage. But the salute itself had done something smaller. It interrupted her. Before the pattern hardened into something worse. And sometimes the thing that saves the most of you is not the thing that saves your career. It is the thing that stops you early enough to see what you were becoming. Our divorce took 6 months. Not because we fought. Because military retirement projections, the house, investment accounts, and 2 careers in different states created enough paperwork to make any clean ending feel bureaucratic. Allison kept her word. No unnecessary motions. No attempt to claim my Medal of Honor pension-related benefits, because there were none tied to the medal itself that belonged in property division. No argument that I had abandoned her during an investigation. No demand that I sign some statement saying the complaint had been a misunderstanding. We divided the house equity. Retirement accounts were handled under normal state law. We each kept our own vehicles. I kept my grandfather's tools. She kept the dining table her mother had given us. The most difficult item was not expensive. A framed photograph from our first deployment together. 2 captains standing beside a cargo pallet in Kuwait. Sunburned. Exhausted. Laughing. Before either of us had learned enough about rank to let it poison the way we spoke at home. Allison wanted it. So did I. Our attorneys probably expected us to argue. Instead I told her. Take it. She stared at me across the mediation table. You sure? Yes. Why? Because I remember that version of us without needing the picture. She started crying. Then folded the photograph carefully into her bag. That was the closest we came to conflict. The decree became final in April. Outside the courthouse, Allison and I stood beneath a gray Colorado sky. She wore civilian clothes. I noticed that because for most of our marriage, important days had involved one of us in uniform. This one didn't. She looked at the envelope in her hand. So that's it. Yes. 9 years. Yes. She gave a small laugh. 27 pages. Efficient government. Civilian court. Same spirit. She smiled. Then. Do you regret marrying me? No. That answer surprised her. Really? Yes. Even after everything? Especially because of everything. Her expression changed. I continued. You were part of most of the best years of my life. Then part of the worst. Yes. That sounds like regret. It isn't. I looked at her. Something ending badly doesn't make every year before it fake. She started crying again. I had become very good at making my ex-wife cry. Not a skill I wanted. She wiped her face. I'm sorry. I know. I know you know. Good. Then she said something I did not expect. I'm glad you didn't stay. I frowned. That's a strange thing to say after a divorce. I mean it. Why? Because if you had stayed, I think I would have spent the rest of my life trying to earn your verdict. That's exactly what I didn't want. I know now. She looked toward the courthouse. Every good evaluation. Every time I listened to a subordinate. Every promotion decision. You would have watched me watching you. Yes. That isn't a marriage. No. We stood quietly. Then she held out her hand. I laughed. What? A handshake? I don't know what divorced officers do. I'm not an officer anymore. Still insufferable. I shook her hand. Then she pulled me into a brief hug. Goodbye, Evan. Goodbye, Allison. We still spoke after that. Not often. But enough to know where life took us. Allison completed her assignment at Fort Leavenworth. Her final 2 evaluations were strong. Not rewritten history. Not best officer I have ever served with. Just strong. One evaluator wrote. Major Mercer demonstrates meaningful growth in collaborative leadership and is particularly effective at building challenge into staff processes rather than treating dissent as resistance. When Allison sent me that line, I stared at it for a long time. Not because she needed my approval. Because the sentence described the exact thing she had once failed to do. I replied. That sounds earned. She answered. It was harder than a top block. I believed her. At 19 years and 3 months, her branch offered one more chance. A lieutenant colonel billet had opened in a training support command. If Allison chose to compete again, she might still have enough time to recover. Her recent record was good. The reprimand remained. The adverse evaluation remained. But boards sometimes select officers who show sustained rehabilitation after failure. Nothing guaranteed. Still possible. She called me that night. I got an email. Bad? Tempting. She explained. Then. Old me would have submitted before finishing the paragraph. What does current you think? I don't know. Do you want Lieutenant Colonel? She laughed. That question still makes me uncomfortable. Why? Because I used to think wanting rank was enough reason to chase it. And now? Now I'm trying to figure out what I want the job for. That sounded healthy. What are your reasons? Partly pride. Okay. Partly because I know I could do it better now. Probably. Partly because I hate the idea that my last meaningful rank decision came from my worst year. There it was. Vindication. Not all of it. Enough. And the job itself? She went quiet. Honestly? Yes. I don't want it very much. Then? I think I want the selection more than the work. That answer decided it. Not because I told her what to do. I didn't. 3 days later, Allison declined. Her branch manager apparently called her crazy. She told him, "I've spent too much of my career treating the next rank as proof that the previous one mattered." He asked if she was giving up. She said, "No. I'm finishing." That distinction mattered. Allison retired at 20 years and 1 month. As a major. No demotion. No dramatic final punishment. The army had never taken her rank. It had denied her the career progression she once assumed would continue. Her retirement ceremony was small. I did not attend. That was her choice as much as mine. She invited former supervisors, a few friends from Leavenworth, Colonel Holt, and, surprisingly, Captain Noah Reed. By then, Noah was a major. He came. That impressed me. Allison told me afterward that she apologized to him privately. Not for everything. Specifically. For removing him after he insisted on proper authority. For labeling caution as disloyalty. For allowing Derek's access to influence her judgment. No request for forgiveness. No request for a character statement. No, I hope we can move past this. Noah apparently listened and said, "Ma'am, I appreciate that. Then. I hope you teach that lesson somewhere." She did. After retirement, Allison took a civilian position with a university-affiliated leadership center in Kansas City. Not as a celebrity veteran. Not as a command guru. She helped design case studies for military and public sector leaders. Her specialty became informal influence. Staff access. Favoritism. Retaliation against process friction. The irony was not subtle. Her first workshop included a fictional scenario about a commander who relied too heavily on one trusted aide. The aide was not named Derek. The spouse was not a Medal of Honor recipient. No one cleaned anyone's boots. The point was not humiliation. It was how quickly an organization can start treating one person's access as a substitute for authority. A former colleague sent me the material. One question stood out. When does getting things done become bypassing the people whose job is to slow you down? I smiled. Then deleted the file. I did not need to grade her recovery. Meanwhile, Derek's career ended differently. He stayed in the Army for another 2 years after reassignment. His reprimand damaged promotion chances. The undisclosed family connection to Orizon remained in his record. He was not charged with bribery. No evidence ever showed he took money. His sister's company did not receive the modernization subcontract tied to the original effort. A separate procurement team made that decision without him. Eventually, Derek left active service as a major. He went into civilian logistics. Not Orizon. Smart choice. I saw him once after that. At Denver International Airport. We noticed each other at a coffee stand. For a second, we both considered walking away. Then Derek approached. Evan. Derek. He looked older. Less polished. More human. Can I buy you coffee? You already owe me for boot cleaning. His face turned red. I laughed. Then he did too. Fair. We sat. He apologized. Not only for the boot. For Summit. For using my name. For pushing Noah. For hiding Lauren's role. I told myself it wasn't a conflict because she wasn't sales. That was convenient. Yes. I told myself I was just getting information. Also convenient. Yes. Then he said. I liked that Allison trusted me. I nodded. I know. I pushed because I knew she'd usually back me. Also true. Did I ruin your marriage? Same question people love asking when one outsider becomes visible inside a broken relationship. No. He looked surprised. You didn't help. Fair. But you didn't make Allison hand me that brush. No. You didn't make her remove Noah. No. You didn't make her treat my contacts like hers. He nodded. Still. Yes. Still. That was enough. Then Derek said, General Brooks saluting you was the worst 5 minutes of my professional life. I laughed. For Allison too. I thought he was about to destroy me. He didn't. No. Records did more damage than the salute. Derek looked at me. I learned that. He stood to leave. Then. For what it's worth, you cleaned the boot well. Get out. He laughed and walked away. Life got quieter after that. Summit expanded. We opened a second veteran transition center. I became executive director. I still refused to put the Medal of Honor in the first line of my biography. Laura compromised by putting it in the fourth. I complained. She ignored me. Fair enough. Then one afternoon, a young veteran came into my office. Former staff sergeant. Bad back. No degree. Convinced his army career had been the only thing that ever made him important. He looked at the framed unit photograph behind me and asked, Do you ever miss when people knew what your rank meant? I miss some of the clarity. What do you mean? In the army, everyone can see a rank. He nodded. In civilian life, nobody knows where they stand. That can be uncomfortable. Yeah. Then he asked, So how do you know if you matter? That question stayed with me. I thought about Ghazni. The medal. Brooks's salute. Allison. The boot. All the ways we had confused status with worth. Finally I said. Rank tells people what authority you hold. He waited. It doesn't tell them what you're worth. He looked unconvinced. So I added. And if you need everyone below you to prove your importance, you're probably already losing it. He laughed. Sounds personal. Very. Years earlier, Allison had handed me another man's boots because she wanted one moment of unquestioned compliance. Then a general walked in and saluted me. Everyone thought the reversal was that she had mistaken an important man for an unimportant one. That was never the real lesson. I would have deserved the same dignity without the medal. Without Ghazni. Without Brooks knowing my name. Without a photograph hanging at division headquarters. The general's salute only made the room notice what should have mattered before he arrived. Allison eventually understood that too. And by the time she retired, the rank she once chased hardest mattered less to her than learning how not to misuse the authority she already had. That was why losing Lieutenant Colonel stopped feeling like the end of her story. It was simply the point where she stopped needing the army to tell her she had changed. 7 years after General Brooks saluted me while I was holding Derek Cole's boot brush, Allison invited me to speak at one of her leadership workshops. I said no. She laughed. That alone told me how much had changed. Old Allison would have asked why. Then challenged the reason. Then reframed the request until my no started sounding selfish. Retired Allison Mercer simply said, Fair enough. I almost changed my mind just because of that. Almost. The workshop was for military officers, municipal managers, and senior public sector staff. Its theme was informal authority. Trusted aides. Personal access. What happens when organizations stop distinguishing between the person who has authority and the person who has the leader's ear? Allison had built a second career around the exact mistake that damaged her first. She never hid that fact. But she also did not build a brand out of public confession. No dramatic presentations titled, The Day I Made a Medal of Honor Recipient Clean Boots. Thank God. Instead, her biography said, Retired U.S. Army Major. Former Logistics and Operations Officer. Leadership educator specializing in organizational trust, informal influence, and decision safeguards. That was enough. Then a week before the workshop, she called again. Not to change my mind. I need permission for something. What? I want to use the boot incident. I went quiet. In detail? Some. My name? No. The medal? No. Brooks? No. That surprised me. Then what's left? The important part. I waited. A leader became angry because her spouse would not provide civilian contacts to a trusted colleague. Yes. She later asked that spouse to perform a demeaning personal task for the colleague in front of subordinates. Yes. The task had no mission necessity. Yes. And afterward she had to answer whether she would have thought it was wrong if nobody important had witnessed it. I remembered that question. The one I asked in our kitchen. If Brooks had never recognized me, would it still have been wrong? It took Allison days to answer honestly. Yes, I said. You can use that. Thank you. Then. Are you sure you don't want to come? No. Understood. She hung up. No pressure. No third attempt. I smiled at the phone. Sometimes growth looks very unimpressive. One accepted no. That was all. A month later, Noah Reed attended the workshop. By then, Noah was Lieutenant Colonel Reed. He had recovered fully from the career detour Allison once created. Strong assignments. Good evaluations. Promotion. Not because someone rewarded him for being wronged. Because once the improper removal was corrected, he continued doing his job well. He called me afterward. Your ex-wife used the boot story. I approved it. She left out the Medal of Honor. I asked her to. Good choice. What did she say? Noah laughed softly. She asked the room why the incident suddenly felt worse when a senior person witnessed it. That was exactly the right question. And? Half the room said because humiliation became public. Reasonable. The other half said because the leader suddenly faced consequences. Also reasonable. What did Allison say? Noah paused. She said both answers missed the biggest problem. I leaned back. What was it? She said the act had been wrong before anyone important walked in. There it was. The lesson underneath the whole story. No medal required. No general required. No reversal required. Noah continued. She said if dignity depends on whether the person being humiliated turns out to be famous, then you never understood dignity. I stopped moving. That was better than anything I could have said. What did people think? Room got very quiet. Good. Then she talked about me. I frowned. By name? No. As a staff officer who asked for written authority before giving informal access. What did she say? That she punished caution because it slowed down someone she trusted. I waited. She said the subordinate was right. That probably cost her more than apologizing privately. Publicly admitting that a lower-ranking officer had exercised better judgment than you had is difficult for anyone. For the Allison I married, it would have been unbearable. Noah said. She didn't turn herself into the hero of the recovery either. What do you mean? She said the lesson didn't become valuable because she learned it. I liked where this was going. She said people had already paid for her learning. Exactly. Me. Noah. The analyst. The staff officers who learned that Derek's request carried special weight. The brigade that stopped trusting whether formal channels were actually formal. Growth does not refund damage. It only changes what happens next. Sounds like a good workshop, I said. It was. Then Noah laughed. Still strange taking leadership advice from the person who removed me. You chose to attend. I know. Why? Because she invited disagreement in the course description. That was irresistible. I wanted to test whether she meant it. And? She did. That mattered. Not because it proved Allison had become perfect. Nobody does. Because years earlier, Noah's questions threatened her. Now she built rooms where questions were part of the design. After we hung up, I thought about calling Allison. I didn't. She did not need my grade. That had become one of the final boundaries between us. Her recovery belonged to her. My life belonged to me. By then, mine looked nothing like the life people imagined a Medal of Honor recipient should have. No political office. No defense company board. No television commentary. No motivational speaking tour. I still ran Summit Veterans Transition Network. We had grown to 4 locations. Housing assistance. Job placement. Benefits navigation. Mentorship. Nothing glamorous. Everything useful. The medal sat in a secure case at home. I rarely wore it. Sometimes young veterans discovered who I was and looked disappointed that I spent my day reviewing program budgets and arguing with landlords. One former infantryman asked, "Doesn't it bother you doing normal stuff after what you did?" I answered, "This is what I was trying to survive long enough to do." He stared at me. Then laughed. Fair. Brooks died when I was 48. Heart attack. Unexpected. His family invited me to the funeral. I went. So did Allison. We sat on opposite sides of the chapel. No significance. Just seating. Afterward, his widow found me. He always told the boot story. I closed my eyes. Of course he did. She smiled. Not the way other people did. What way? He said everyone remembered the salute. Yes. But he remembered your face. I frowned. What about it? He said you looked embarrassed. That sounds right. He told me that was how he knew the whole story was being misunderstood. I stared at her. She continued. He said you didn't want people respecting you because of the medal after they had failed to respect you before recognizing it. Brooks had understood. Better than I realized. His widow handed me an envelope. He wrote this for you after he got sick last year. I opened it later at home. One page. Typical Brooks. No sentimentality until the final paragraph. He wrote about Ghazni. About leadership. About the strange burden of surviving long enough to become a symbol of something much messier than one person's courage. Then, that day at the Heritage reception, I saluted the medal because tradition required it. But I respected you for something else. You did not use the medal to humiliate the people who had just humiliated you. That restraint told me more about you than the citation ever did. I read that line 3 times. Then the last one. Do not let people turn that moment into a story about who deserved to polish whose boots. Everyone should polish their own damn boots. I laughed so hard Hannah came in from the other room to ask what was wrong. By then, Hannah and I had been together for almost 4 years. No dramatic second marriage. No need to prove I had won by replacing Allison with someone better. Hannah worked in nonprofit finance. We met because she told Summit our grant reporting was a mess. Romantic. She knew the whole Allison story. Mostly because Army people kept finding creative ways to tell it badly. One night she asked, "Did the general saluting you save your marriage?" "No." "And it?" "No." "Then what did it do?" I thought about that. It interrupted a lie. What lie? That Allison was only being efficient. That was it. Before Brooks walked in, she could tell herself the boot was just urgency. Derek needed to look presentable. The general was coming. I was available. Problem solved. After the salute, the room reacted. That reaction forced her to see the humiliation she had built into the task. But even then, she still initially thought the embarrassment came from my hidden status. If she had known I was someone the general would salute, she never would have asked. That was not enough. The real change came later. When she understood she should not have asked even if I were nobody famous. Even if I had left the army as an ordinary sergeant. Even if I had never seen combat. Even if I had spent my entire life doing paperwork at Summit. The rank and medal changed how the room reacted. They did not change whether she was wrong. That distinction became the reason I eventually stopped hating the photograph. Years later, a copy still circulated online occasionally. Usually with captions like, "Major orders civilian to clean boots, then general reveals who he really is." Mostly nonsense. Nobody revealed me. Brooks recognized me. No one was court-martialed on the spot. No stars were ripped off anyone's shoulders. Allison did not lose her rank that afternoon. Derek was not arrested. The army did not destroy 2 careers because of a boot. What actually happened was slower. Less cinematic. More serious. A complaint already existed. Investigators reviewed records. They found Allison had retaliated against process friction, treated my civilian contacts as partially hers to use, and allowed Derek too much informal influence. They found Derek had hidden a family connection relevant to the access he was seeking. Allison received a permanent reprimand and adverse evaluation. She lost a key assignment. Then promotion. Derek received his own administrative consequences. Noah's career was corrected. The system tightened some boundaries. Our marriage ended. Not because a general saluted me. Because the investigation exposed a pattern, and the boot revealed something more personal. My wife had wanted obedience badly enough to humiliate me for resisting. She admitted it. She changed. I still left. Both things can be true. That is the part revenge stories usually hate. Someone can become better and still not get back what they broke. Allison deserved the life she built after the army. She did not automatically deserve our marriage back. I deserved to leave without requiring her permanent misery as proof I had been right. Years after Brooks's funeral, Allison sent me one photograph. Not the salute. Her retirement-era leadership class. About 30 people around a table. On the whiteboard behind them, someone had written, Who benefits when nobody asks why? Her message said. No response needed. Thought you'd appreciate the question. I did. So I followed the instruction. No response. That would have made old Allison insane. The thought made me smile. The last time we saw each other was at Noah Reed's promotion ceremony. Colonel. He had invited both of us. Allison came because he asked. I came because Noah had become a friend. Afterward, we stood outside headquarters. Allison looked at the silver eagle on Noah's uniform. I once removed that man because he asked for paperwork. Not exactly the strongest leadership story. No. He seems to have recovered. Better than recovered. She smiled. Then looked at me. You know what I used to think was the worst moment of my career? The salute? Yes. And now? The email. I knew which one. He's my husband. He doesn't get to create walls between my mission and his network. Why that? Because the boot was cruel. She paused. But the email showed I actually believed the boundary shouldn't exist. That was an important difference. Cruel moments can come from anger. Beliefs create patterns. She continued. I'm glad you put the wall back. I didn't. She frowned. The investigation did. No. I looked at her. The wall was always there. She understood. I just stopped letting you pretend it wasn't. Allison smiled. Still annoying. Retired privilege. We shook hands. No hug this time. Didn't need one. Then we walked in opposite directions. People remember that day at Fort Sentinel because a 2-star general entered a room and saluted the man cleaning a major's muddy boot. Allison froze. Derek went pale. Everyone suddenly understood I was not who they thought I was. But years later, I understood the better version. They did not discover that I was too important to clean someone else's boots. They discovered they had been measuring dignity by the wrong thing. My wife did not become wrong because a general saluted me. She was wrong before he entered the room. Before anyone recognized me. Before anyone knew the medal existed. The salute did not give me dignity. It only made the room notice the dignity Allison had already ignored. And that was what she finally spent the rest of her career learning never to do again. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.